In a dramatic change of policy, millions of people across England have been placed under stringent new coronavirus restrictions for the festive season.
Welcome to WatchMojoUK, and today we're counting down our picks for the 10 most embarrassing decisions in British politics.
People that go on our protests that are necessarily going to be kettled or, smash up police vans, but we do have a legitimate protest to make.
Before we begin, we publish new content every day, so be sure to subscribe to our channel and ring the bell to get notified about our latest videos.
For this list, we're looking at the biggest U-turns politicians have made in the UK. Let us know in the comments what you think of the current government. Number 10. Nationalising Rolls-Royce.
The bloodshed and the terror in Ulster, the rising unemployment, the widening conflict of opinion about entry into the common market, those are some of the problems faced by Mr Heath and the government as they prepare for their second full session of Parliament.
Edward Heath may be one of the least memorable modern Prime Ministers we've had, thanks in no small part to his total abandonment of his campaign manifesto. Heath said he didn't want to help struggling firms, he didn't want to provide government handouts, and he wanted to focus on free market economics.
But I think what's been overlooked all the time is that the outrages were building up very quickly.
People voted him in, and he did none of those things, instead going as far as to nationalise Rolls-Royce in 1971 because it was struggling to make ends meet.
Why do you think that the Conservative government which you lead has lost so much popularity with the electorate?
This all earned him the title of King of the U-Turn from one Guardian columnist, and meant that just after 4 years, the public voted Labour back in. Number 9. Tough on crime, tough on the causes of crime.
What did, however, harm pensioners was the implementation of the last government putting VAT on fuel. Precisely for that reason, we are proposing cutting it.
This phrase is likely something you remember very clearly from the Blair years. It was catchy and summed up Labour's stance on criminal justice pretty well, up until it didn't.
Now, much of the behaviour of some of the young tearaways and thugs in our communities make life hell for people.
Not only did many of Labour's efforts to tackle crime, like introducing ASBOs, simply not work in the slightest, but the party often had to walk back some of its stricter penal policies after backlash, and ASBOs were largely ditched by the Tories in 2014.
Then we do say they are able to tell the difference between right and wrong, and the law should be changed in that respect.
Gordon Brown also performed a notorious crime U-turn when a white paper emerged that the government was going to send criminals to visit their victims, though they later tried to deny this, and it never went ahead. Number 8. Dementia tax.
Our social care system will collapse unless we address this problem, and we can't leave it to the future. We have to start dealing with it now.
It's no surprise that a policy that quickly got the nickname dementia tax in the press was so unpopular it forced Theresa May to U-turn on it. The policy was a reform to social care that would see pensioners in need of state-funded care liable for the cost of it if they had an asset worth over £100,000.
Last Thursday, the Conservatives suggested a major overhaul of the social care system in England.
Given the UK housing market has exorbitantly high prices and a majority of pensioners own their own home, this meant massive numbers of elderly people would essentially be forced to sell their home if they needed state-funded care. Since many of the Tory base is home-owning pensioners, it's no wonder May had to walk back this policy.
Isn't this U-turn really just a cynical attempt to stop voters leaving you in droves?
Look, first of all, let's be clear. We have not changed the principles that we set out in the manifesto.
Number 7. A-level results. In August 2020, exam results began to come in for kids who were sitting GCSEs and A-levels during the pandemic.
But there's controversy because the figures for England show that 39% of grades were marked down, while 2% went up.
Rather than actually sit exams because of COVID regulations, teens were given grades produced by an algorithm using their school's past results. It all ended up that schools in lower income areas got significantly worse results than high income areas.
Jafar has been rejected by all her unis. Teachers estimated 3 Bs at A-level. Every one downgraded to a C.
In the end, it was so catastrophic that the government went back on its decision and made it so that teachers' predicted grades could be used in lieu of formal exams, rather than relying on a computer algorithm designed to give privately educated kids better results.
At a state sixth form, good news for some, but top grades for private pupils have gone up more. Labour says too many students have lost out.
Number 6. Pastygate, a pitifully embarrassing U-turn. In 2012, the dynamic duo of David Cameron and George Osborne had the idea to add VAT to hot snacks, specifically sausage rolls and pasties, two of the nation's favourite foods.
Well, it's some sort of rule now, isn't it? So if you buy your pasty cold, it costs so much money, but if it's then heated up, you then pay 20% extra because it's now become an ambient pasty.
This would have increased the price of your Greggs sausage roll and traditional Cornish pasty by 20% at the time, in what was labelled a pasty tax. Suffice it to say, the British public likes its pastries, and the public outrage was so massive that Osborne was forced to walk back the policy.
Because Ed Miliband immediately went with Ed Balls to Greggs.
Yeah.
And they both ate a pie, and the Tory cabinet had to all go to Greggs. What is this?
The Tories weren't helped by the fact that neither Cameron nor Osborne could convince the public they'd ever actually eaten a pasty in the first place.
When's the last time you bought a pasty in Greggs?
Look, I can't remember the last time I bought a pasty in Greggs, to answer your question.
That kind of sums it up.
Number 5. Class C or Class B?
Critics worry that allowing cannabis in medicine will slip into liberalising the use of it recreationally.
Whether weed should be legalised remains a hotly debated topic in the UK, with more than half of adults surveyed in 2022 saying they think it should be completely legal.
I can't think why the motive would be not to legalise this as soon as possible and start saving lives.
Some success was seen on this front in the 2000s, however, when cannabis's status as a Class B drug was lowered down to Class C by Tony Blair's government. However, only a few years later, in 2008, and the government flip-flopped and decided that actually they'd rather it was a Class B and carried more severe penalties.
I mean, I think alcohol and pharmaceuticals are far more dangerous than cannabis oil. We met lots of people that had benefited from it.
Arguably, this is a major step backwards in Britain's drug laws, especially as the UK is one of the biggest producers and exporters of cannabis worldwide. Number 4. Handshaking.
Good evening. The coronavirus is the biggest threat this country has faced for decades.
In early 2020, nobody knew that COVID-19 would eventually become what it did, but was this reason enough for some of Boris's big blunders in the early days of the pandemic?
I'm shaking hands continuously. I was at a hospital the other night where I think there were actually a few coronavirus patients, and I shook hands with everybody, you'll be pleased to know, and I continue to shake hands. And
just as the virus had begun to appear in the UK, and Boris was already trying to pass it off as nothing to worry about, boasting about how he'd been going around the country and shaking hands with hundreds of people, with no thought to wearing a mask or taking any precautions.
From this evening, I must give the British people a very simple instruction. You must stay at home.
Well, not long after, the numbers spiralled so out of control that the government was forced to do an unprecedented intervention, and the former Prime Minister himself ended up in hospital with the virus. Number 3. Tuition fees.
Yes, I understand many people were angry about the decisions we had to take. The fact is that in the future, it'll prove, in my view, to be one of the most progressive higher education funding systems in the world. Why?
The Lib Dems have often struggled to gain a foothold against Tories and Labour in recent years, and their large decline may be thanks to this notorious U-turn. Nick Clegg turned the party around during the 2010 election, so much so that, in the absence of a clear majority, a coalition was set up between the Lib Dems and the Tories.
We've already seen it come from no fees to 1,000 to 3,000 and now at 9,000.
The coalition government did many things, among them significantly raising university tuition fees, despite massive opposition from students and despite the fact that the Liberal Democrats had promised during their campaign to abolish tuition fees altogether.
They're just lawyers, legal support that are very used to dealing with like activists and the kind of charges that we could possibly face.
Instead, they let the Tories raise them to £9,000 and lost all credibility.
You dismiss it as the controversy, but the whole point was that what the Liberals were bringing into government
was a commitment not to have tuition fees.
Number 2. Christmas 2020.
Well, from midnight tonight, new Tier 4 restrictions come into force, affecting all current Tier 3 areas in London, the South East and East of England.
Following 9 months of social distancing and on and off lockdowns, people were desperate for the chance to spend some time with their families. Initially, Boris Johnson's government said people would be allowed to mix social bubbles and spend Christmas with their loved ones.
The public is being asked to stay at home, and there will be no so-called Christmas bubbles for gatherings.
But then, case numbers began to shoot up to the extent that less than a week before Christmas, the guidance was changed and another firebreak lockdown was implemented.
It is with a very heavy heart, I must tell you, we cannot continue with Christmas as planned.
People's Christmas plans were scuppered after previously being told that they'd definitely be allowed to join in the festivities, leaving many people either breaking the law or forced to spend Christmas alone. Number 1. 45p.
It's the first time she's spoken since the Chancellor unveiled massive tax cuts in last week's mini-budget.
Just 2 days after Liz Truss entered number 10, the Queen passed away. 10 days of government closure and official mourning followed, and then, when they did come back, Truss and Kwasi Kwarteng unveiled a mini-budget that outraged the public, backbench MPs, the opposition, economists, landlords and even bankers.
And Lydia says, are you ashamed of what you've done, are you?
I think we have to remember what situation this country was facing.
The pound plunged to its lowest level in history, and just a week later, Kwarteng was forced to scrap the proposed cut to the highest rate of income tax.
Is it time to reverse what you've done, bearing in mind what you've seen over the last few days, the damages caused to the pound?
Well, no, it isn't.
Despite Truss's government claiming the war in Ukraine and global energy crises were to blame, the Bank of England has since concluded that yes, the mini-budget was responsible for the economic disaster.
Do you agree with our picks? Check out this other recent clip from WatchMojoUK and be sure to subscribe and ring the bell to be notified about our latest videos.